Welcome to the deep dive. We are sitting on, well, quite a fascinating stack of source material today. It's all focused on the structural history of the Trump and Kushner families.
hmm
And this isn't just biography, is it? It's more like an intense look at how wealth, political power, and our basic regulatory systems all kind of merged over 3 generations.
Yeah, exactly. Our mission today is really systemic. We want to pull out the key mechanisms, the specific choices made about taxes, campaign finance, regulation
Right.
that basically allowed these real estate dynasties to gather and, well, consolidate just unprecedented influence.
Yeah.
The sources actually call this the potential creation of an American oligarchy.
An American oligarchy. Wow.
And we're here to understand how the system itself allowed that to happen.
Exactly. So we're tracing this line starting from, say, post-war suburban buildings, specific government subsidies,
hmm
moving through those huge tax policy shifts in the 80s, right up to, well, the complete merging of private business and state power. So get ready for an analysis that really explains how the rules of the American economy were, perhaps, bent to favor dynastic control.
And what's striking right from the start in these sources is how both families, even though they later talked up their pure entrepreneurial genius, they built their foundational wealth by, well, leveraging and sometimes exploiting government infrastructure and policy almost immediately.
Heavily subsidized from the get-go, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, let's dig into that. Maybe start with the Kushners. Joseph Kushner, he was an immigrant, a Holocaust survivor,
Mhm.
started out saving very diligently, right? Saving half his $90 weekly salary to buy just 3 lots. Seems
I-
quite traditional.
A frugal start.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole story.
No, because the real acceleration, the sources say, didn't come from just 3 lots. It came from massive systemic government support for suburban development.
That's the crucial distinction, isn't it? Joseph Kushner's real estate business got this huge boost from two major public interventions.
Okay, what were they?
First, the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, building all those highways. That opened up access to all this cheap suburban land.
Right, made it reachable.
And second, there were federal programs that, well, effectively encouraged white families to move out of the cities, white flight.
Ah.
So you put those together. That government tailwind is what allowed him to build something like 4,000 suburban homes.
4,000.
Yeah. And then his son, Charles, he just scaled that model way, way up to, what, 22,000 units?
22,000. That's what the analysis shows. Wow. Now, shifting to the Trumps, we find a similar deep reliance on government funds, don't we? But maybe secured more through political maneuvering.
That seems to be the case. Fred Trump, he spent years cultivating ties with these powerful Brooklyn Democratic Party bosses.
Right. The source mentions lunches at places like the Montauk Club. Very old school power brokering.
Exactly. And that political capital, that was instrumental. It helped him secure these crucial, really large-scale federally backed funds from the FHA, the Federal Housing Administration.
And this started early, like the 1930s.
As early as the 30s, yeah. And the sources show Fred Trump became one of the largest recipients of FHA loans in the entire country.
Okay, but here's where the analysis gets, well, quite pointed. The source material highlights a darker side to how that government money was given out.
Mm-hmm.
FHA guidelines didn't just support building homes, they explicitly institutionalized racial discrimination. We're talking about redlining, aren't we?
That's exactly it. The FHA guidelines required lending only go to properties in specific neighborhoods, areas occupied by the same social and racial classes, was the phrasing.
So basically, refusing to back mortgages in areas deemed risky, which almost always meant any area with non-white residents.
Precisely. The government itself effectively encoded segregation into the foundation of American suburban wealth.
And Fred Trump successfully harnessed that system.
He absolutely did. Built a fortune on it.
And then, once that wealth was built, Fred Trump made sure most of it bypassed the federal government when he died. The sources detail, almost 300 ways to channel about $1 billion to his kids, largely untaxed.
Yeah, $1 billion. And understanding how is key to seeing the systemic issue. These weren't just standard trusts you might hear about.
No.
No, Fred Trump used really sophisticated methods. Things like artificially low valuations of assets, or transferring tiny fractional interests in properties like giving each kid 1% ownership, and then arguing that Tiny Slice was worth almost nothing for tax purposes.
Right.
It allowed them to dodge hundreds of millions in estate taxes.
So it's a systemic evasion of the very laws designed to, fund a more egalitarian society, right?
Right.
To prevent exactly this kind of dynastic wealth buildup.
Exactly. A deliberate undermining of the intent of the estate tax.
So if that was tax evasion on an individual level, the 1980s seemed to usher in an age of tax restructuring on a national level. By 1981, which happens to be the year Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump were born, quite an inflection point. The whole national environment was shifting, wasn't it? Shifting dramatically to favor consolidating family wealth through public policy itself.
It really was a turning point. The financial and tax policy in the U.S. just took this sharp turn. Structurally, it started favoring asset accumulation way more than earned income.
Right.
And that allowed dynasties like these to roll up assets faster than, well, any time since maybe the 1920s.
Just how dramatic were those policy changes? Can you give us specifics?
Oh, massive. The Reagan administration, they slashed the top individual income tax rate. It went from 70%
70.
down to 50%, and maybe even more importantly, the capital gains tax rate, that dropped from 28% to 20%.
And for families whose income is mostly from investments, real estate appreciation, assets, not salaries, that's huge, isn't it?
It's like rocket fuel for wealth accumulation.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, the estate tax, that key mechanism meant to break up inherited wealth, that was also being eased. Gradually weakened, yes, which made transferring wealth across generations much, much simpler.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, economists cited in the sources argue these shifts basically paved the way for a return to what they call patrimonial capitalism.
Yes, patrimonial capitalism. It's a system where control of the economy isn't necessarily held by the most talented individuals earning their way up,
Right.
but by inherited family dynasties,
Mm.
people who control vast assets simply because they were born into the right family.
And the systems designed to balance the scales, maybe promote economic mobility, they were being deliberately weakened.
Exactly. Weakened or sidestepped.
The sources use this interesting measure, the rubber band comparison,
Yeah.
to illustrate the inequality. It rates economic mobility, how hard it is to escape the social class you're born into. At 0.3 about 50 years ago, today it's 0.5. What does that actually mean, 0.3 versus 0.5?
Well, think about it like this. That half-point difference means the economic rubber band pulling you back towards the circumstances you were born into. It's much stronger now. It's harder to break away.
And the sources link this decline in mobility to what? Rising costs?
Yeah, escalating costs for things like housing and higher education, combined with wages for the working class, just not keeping pace. Stagnation.
So the system became less mobile and more unequal at the same time.
Precisely. Tough combination.
Okay, so this new financial climate, lower taxes, easier wealth transfer, maybe less oversight, it created this insulation, right? And that seems to have allowed for some pretty aggressive political and business moves, sometimes crossing legal lines. Which brings up the question, how did these families navigate legal and ethical challenges in this, let's say, more permissive environment?
Well, Charlie Kushner's story is a really stark example of that aggressive, maybe even reckless maneuvering. After expanding the business incredibly fast, he ended up pleading guilty.
To what exactly?
Witness tampering, first off. Then defrauding U.S. taxpayers and campaign finance violations.
Yeah.
He served a year in federal prison.
And the witness tampering part, that involved a really nasty family conflict, didn't it? With his own brother-in-law, Billy.
It did. Charlie Kushner found out that Billy was cooperating with federal prosecutors who were investigating him.
Okay.
And that's when Charlie orchestrated this infamous dirty trick. He paid a prostitute, the sources say, somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000
Right.
to seduce his brother-in-law, Billy, and secretly videotape the encounter.
Wow. Just pure leverage and intimidation, personal vengeance over public justice.
Pretty much.
Oh.
And the sources also highlight Jared Kushner's reaction when his father was arrested. His first question was reportedly, was it because of the tape?
Implying he knew about it.
Implying he knew and maybe thought the lawyers knew and didn't think it was illegal. Later, Jared apparently dismissed the whole prosecution, called it a private family matter.
Something that should have been handled internally by the family or the rabbis, not by state prosecutors.
Yeah, it shows this immediate instinct to view legal mechanisms as just inconvenient intrusions into private family business.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump, he relied heavily on his own political and legal fixers, didn't he? People operating on the principle that, well, no maneuver was too low. Roy Cohn comes to mind immediately.
Roy Cohn, yes.
Yep.
Trump's key mentor in that regard. Notorious figure.
Cohn advised Trump during those crucial early New York City deals, right? Ran his practice from his townhouse, worked with mafia figures.
All true. And the sources point out that later, when Trump was president and facing legal issues, he famously asked his staff, "Where's my Roy Cohn?"
Looking for that same kind of ruthless attack dog defense.
Exactly. And another key fixer figure mentioned is Roger Stone.
Right. What did he do?
Well, back in 2000, Stone helped Trump run this secret anti-gambling campaign in New York. They funded a totally invented conservative group to push negative ads against casino competitors.
Secretly funded.
Yeah, and the sources actually confirm Trump personally approved the negative ads. His handwriting was found on an invoice. So it demonstrates a long history of using deception, these kinds of dirty tricks in political and business maneuvering.
Okay, so beyond the family conflicts and the internal fixers, the sources also show how international money, often anonymous wealth, started pouring into U.S. real estate during this period.
Yeah, this is a huge piece of the puzzle, especially regarding foreign influence and potential money laundering. Paul Manafort provides a perfect microcosm of this.
Manafort, Trump's campaign chairman for a time, what did he do?
He purchased a Brooklyn brownstone, paid $3 million.
Cash.
All cash. Routed through Cypriot shell companies.
Okay, unpack that. Why Cyprus? Why shell companies?
Well, Cyprus is a well-known tax haven, and shell companies are basically designed to hide the true owner of assets. Total anonymity.
So Manafort was using this structure to do what?
To wash wealth. In this case, the sources indicate it was money from Ukrainian oligarchs who supported the pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych.
So moving questionable foreign money into stable U.S. assets like real estate. Shielded from taxes, shielded from scrutiny.
That's the mechanism. Clean the money, park it safely.
Which brings us to the final stage described in the sources. The complete merging of the family business with the actual apparatus of the state. All those skills, honed over decades, leveraging government programs, sophisticated tax avoidance, using fixers, political maneuvering, maybe handling foreign money, they were all brought directly into the highest office.
And that merging of private interest and public office is exactly what the sources define as that final stage of kind of institutional capture. Once Donald Trump became president, many of those standard legal and ethical firewalls, they just seemed to collapse.
Ethics experts were immediately raising red flags about the emoluments clause of the Constitution, weren't they?
No.
What does that actually prevent?
Simply put, the emoluments clause bars a president from taking payments or gifts from foreign governments. It's meant to prevent foreign influence.
Right.
And experts argue that Trump refusing to fully divest from his businesses, leaving them to his sons, but still accepting payments from foreign governments through his hotels and properties.
That was a direct violation.
They called it Corruption 101. Said it was basically an announcement of an auction of American foreign policy. The door was open for foreign powers to funnel money to the president's family businesses.
And we saw that play out very concretely with the Trump International Hotel in D.C., didn't we? The Presidential Inaugural Committee was charged, what was it, $700,000 for using the ballroom?
$700,000. And that number is really stark because the committee's own event planner had suggested a rate closer to $85,000 a day.
Huge difference.
Massive. The hotel instantly became, as the sources put it, coin of the realm. It was the obvious place for foreign governments, lobbyists, anyone wanting to curry favor, to spend money, effectively subsidizing the president's private business.
And this power of family access, it seemed to override even basic qualifications and security concerns when it came to White House staffing.
It certainly appears so. Both Ivanka and Jared were appointed as senior White House advisors, positions of enormous power and access.
And the sources reveal some really shocking details about Jared's security clearance process, right?
They do. An internal review shows that a career White House security official explicitly recommended against granting Jared Kushner top-secret security clearance.
On what grounds?
Citing significant disqualifying factors. Things like foreign influence concerns, outside business activities, and personal conduct issues.
Those sound like enormous red flags in national security terms.
They absolutely are. And yet, that official's recommendation was overruled by a political supervisor. Jared got the clearance.
And his resulting role, particularly in foreign policy, highlights this power of family access, doesn't it? Regardless of traditional experience.
Totally. He was approached directly by Russia's sovereign wealth fund via an intermediary named Rick Gerson. He cultivated this very close personal relationship, a bromance as the sources call it, with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS. And the sources indicate he often brokered deals or held sensitive discussions very quietly, sometimes bypassing or without the full knowledge of the U.S. Secretary of State.
Like being present when Saudi and Emirati leaders were apparently planning the blockade of Qatar, He was running a kind of parallel foreign policy track.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
One rooted in personal relationships and family ties, rather than traditional diplomatic channels and, established processes.
So it really completes the structural argument laid out in the sources, doesn't it? A family dynasty, originally built on government subsidies and sophisticated tax avoidance, ultimately leveraging the state itself for private enrichment and conducting diplomacy based on personal loyalty.
That's the trajectory the sources lay out, yeah.
Yeah.
From leveraging FHA loans to potentially auctioning foreign policy access.
Okay. We've covered a huge amount of ground today, tracing this flow of money and power from, subsidized housing in suburban New Jersey right into the Oval Office. And the central theme running through all this source material seems to be that this path wasn't inevitable, was it? It was, as the sources state, a story built on very specific choices. Choices about taxation, regulation, corruption, campaign finance laws.
Exactly. Specific choices that allowed these two real estate families to become these entrenched political dynasties.
These deep dives really demonstrate how systems that were maybe originally designed to balance opportunity with equity, things like a strong estate tax meant to fund an egalitarian society, or clear ethical firewalls protecting public service,
Yeah.
how those systems were systematically weakened or evaded or just ignored, leading to the entrenchment of these family dynasties.
The systems got bent, you could say, bent towards personal enrichment rather than the broader public interest.
So what does this all mean for you listening? The sources do offer a little historical perspective. They point out that the last time the U.S. got this close to entrenched oligarchic rule back in the Gilded Age,
Late 19th century.
the country did eventually pull back. You had the Progressive Era reforms,
Yep.
the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up monopolies, the creation of the income tax, expanded voting rights.
Right.
So that history shows that systemic change is possible. It has happened before.
Which leads us to the final provocative thought, maybe. Given all this detailed evidence of how modern financial and political systems have been utilized, bent towards dynastic interests,
Yeah.
the question becomes, if the country managed to pull back from oligarchy once before, what specific combination of regulatory and political actions would be required today? Would it be radically restructured estate taxes, maybe land value taxes, robustly enforced anti-corruption laws? What would it actually take now to shift that balance back towards a genuinely egalitarian society?
That is the structural challenge, isn't it? Something worth digging into next.